everybody. I'm Ashley Chesling, and I am your host for Food for Life. I've been getting some messages, everyone, since I've been off on hiatus. You don't know what I do, so I am going to tell you. I am a personal chef and food educator. I own my own business called Bello Foodie here in Massachusetts. I travel, I cook, and I created my business as a way to share my love of cooking with the local community. When I was diagnosed with MS at 21, I really took a deep dive into learning how food can affect the body and how it can help us and support us. And then now, recently, if you watched the show in the last few weeks, I talked about how I was diagnosed with mast cell activation syndrome and how I'm learning to have food help me support me on my new journey, since food has now become kind of the enemy in a way. But we'll talk some more about that. And as I welcome the new energy into our show, Julie, my co-host. Hey, Julie, how are you this morning?
Hi, I'm good. What's up, Ash?
Not much. It is a very brisk morning here.
Yeah, it's freezing here too. Definitely got the cold weather, got the chill, and it actually snowed yesterday in the Northwest.
Oh, no. I'm sitting there going, it was 80 last week. Now it's snowing. I'm like,
I know.
Nature has a mind of her own. I'm like, I get that she's a little, temperamental, especially this time of year, but snow and summer in the same week is a little hard for me to deal with.
Oh, me too. And I flip between my flip-flops and my Uggs. So it's like one day Ugg, one day flip-flop. And then it's like the second it's too chilly out, it's like stick the foot back in the Ugg because it keeps it nice and warm. So yeah, my footwear is definitely really confused this week about what's going on.
Well, I had just changed over my closet and then it was 80 degrees. And now I'm like, how do I get dressed in the morning? Like, I feel like I'm staring at my closet going, I don't know what to do. Like, I've never been so confused on how to get dressed in my life. But
I think it's hard too because you throw on a coat in the morning and by the afternoon you're like sweating, you're like back in like a summer outfit. So it's never easy to do this type of weather.
Well, if you want to know more and listen to me and Julie complain about the weather and talk more food stuff, we have our new Instagram account up and running. So please come follow us for extra content, our recipes from the show, some fun stuff from our guests. So take a look, go to Instagram, follow us. Not now, but after the show or during one of our breaks. But I want to welcome our fabulous guest, Abby Hueber. I love everything about her. She's a functional dietitian and she has some really cool points of view to share. So let's welcome Abby, everyone. Hi, Abby. How are you this morning?
Hi. Doing well. Excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you. We were talking right before the show. We have a mutual friend and a friend of the show, Meg Gerber.
Yes, she is the best and up to always creative and interesting things.
Yes, I love talking to her because she's so interesting. And if it weren't for her, I probably would never be so fascinated with tiger nuts in my life.
So I am a fellow tiger nut flower all the way lover, and she's the only other person I feel that we're screaming at it from the rooftops and is it fallen on deaf ears? It needs to catch on.
I'm screaming from the rooftops. I am using it and things, and then people look at me. They go, "What is that again?"
I'm the one screaming from the rooftop. I'm like, "What is a tiger nut?" I'm like, "What is this?" What are you talking about? I'm like, what's that down there?
Totally.
I mean, why don't you explain?
Yeah, well, so it when we use it in flour, it's actually kind of a nut in more of the legume family. But when you kind of use it in a flour, it can pretty much be a substitute for any type of flour, from an almond flour to a gluten-free flour to a regular flour. But what it provides is flavor-wise, it's a little more naturally sweet, which is really nice. I use it in a banana bread, and it's hands down the best banana bread recipe, which originally was supposed to be made with almond flour. And I'm like, why this was not made with tiger nut, I don't know. But it's also a prebiotic, meaning it's a great food source for our beneficial bacteria in the gut. So it's an incredible medicinal food in terms of, supporting our microbiome, which then supports our mental health, our immunity health, our metabolism. The list goes on of what, those microbes do and don't do.
And what's it made from? I'm guessing it's not made from actual tigers, but what is it come from?
Like a root vegetable kind of thing.
All right.
Yeah, about it is it's allergen free basically. it's very rare you could be allergic to it. Like it has all kinds of things free, but it also comes in like sliced and chopped. And like I make a granola with the sliced ones.
Ooh.
And it's really great to like just kind of eat and put on toppings. I just do a little bit of maple syrup and like a pinch of like mineral salt, and it comes out so good.
Does it come crystallized or is it powder? Or what does it look like when you
It
get
looks like sliced almonds, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks
kind of weird.
similar to like a nut.
Yeah, it is. It tastes similar to a nut. It tastes sweet, the flour. Kind of like a cross between a nut and a coconut flour.
Well, interesting. Well,
Yes.
on that note, Abby, it's so nice to have you here, and I would love to hear a little bit about your background and tell us more about your story.
Yeah, we skipped the part about tell the audience about who you are.
Yeah, I was like tiger nut, like.
Oh, totally. Like, let's talk about the real stuff here.
Yeah.
So I am an integrative functional dietitian, which is a total like mouthful of a title. But really, I specialize in digestive health and getting to the root of the root cause, we might say, of what's actually driving someone's symptoms and kind of ill health experience. So certainly digestive symptoms, constipation, loose stools, heartburn, pain, any type of uncomfy GI symptom, but also that can show up in our skin, eczema, psoriasis, that can show up in fatigue, that can show up in aches and pains, that can show up in so many different kind of experiences of the body. And a lot of it can be rooted in the health. Certainly can see it impacting our kind of hormonal health too. And I started like kind of the traditional route of training to be a dietitian. I really was always interested in like nutrition because of my love of food. And then I kind of found out along the way, I like loved science, and chemistry was something that came like naturally to me. Even I was surprised by that. But eventually realized like, oh, like nutrition is where like food and chemistry like meet. They like have a baby and it's called nutrition. And I was like, oh, this is, and then I found out what a dietitian was and kind of was like, all right, like, here we go. This is, after thinking I was going to be like a surgeon, I'm like, that's laughable. I'm a detailed person, but not that detailed. And I was always curious about like just learning more. Like, I feel like I got into kind of a little bit of the basics of nutrition and kind of was like, this can't be all of it. Like, this doesn't sound, this like isn't like fun. There's no like I feel like there was always missing a part. And even through like conventional training, I struggled with my own digestive symptoms. I experienced chronic fatigue. And I really couldn't heal my own body, but I was doing all the right things. I was walking the walk, talking the talk. I did every elimination diet on the planet, only to find myself like in the exact same position, if not worse, and with a worse relationship with
what
food.
What was wrong with you? Like, did you find out what was wrong with you in the end?
Yeah, I mean, root cause is usually more like a perfect storm than it is just like, oh my God, this one thing was the thing that was driving my dynamics. You know, I think from order of priority, mold toxicity was kind of the biggest piece that kind of created opportunity in my body for then SIBO, which is overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria in the GI system, which causes constipation, which is what I struggled with. And then kind of maybe potentially like then that kind of led to me not absorbing as much nutrients from my food, which was challenging my mitochondria, which was resulting in the fatigue. And mold toxicity is actually an experience of a toxin in the body. So kind of a perfect storm of kind of unwinding and peeling back like the onion of once I figured out, how to identify those things, and then kind of like, how do I start to support myself in healing my body? And, you know, I think really what I speak to more so now today than anything is like the strength in the foundations of, yes, the fancy, you know, I did the functional testing, I did all the customized supplements, and those were incredibly helpful. But really it was when I like made the decision to like dig deep into the foundations of like my health and just consistency more than anything. That's when over the next like 2 years, I can confidently say now, like, I'm no longer chronically constipated and I no longer have chronic fatigue. And that is my goal for like all humans on the planet, to like really slowly but surely step into, you know, what does it feel like to have vibrant health in our own bodies?
Let's go into talking about root causes, because I don't think a lot of people understand what that means. Like, what is a root cause of something? depending on, like, say you get a diagnosis, but what's the root cause that's causing your diagnosis?
Yeah. So I think this is where, like, we kind of two schools of thought of like this conventional medicine model and kind of functional medicine model, where, are we band-aiding a symptom in terms of taking something that's just going to make us like feel better for, a period of time or maybe a long period of time. But it's not actually addressing like what's happening at the root. So I always think of like the root cause as, if you stepped on a thumbtack, you're like, oh, all right, I stepped on a thumbtack and now I've got pain, I've got swelling, I've got inflammation. Maybe it's making me walk funny and now my hip hurts. And like all of a sudden then I have a headache because of the, pain or the experience of it. So now we've got a number of symptoms. Now, if I was not practicing root cause medicine, I'd be giving this person like Advil for the pain, like some anti-inflammatories for the swelling. I'd be, making them like work on their like just kind of like band-aiding over some of the symptoms they're experiencing. But root cause is actually being like, wait, why are you walking like that? And where's the pain coming from? And realizing like, oh my gosh, there's a thumbtack stuck in the sole of your foot. Let's pull that out. And then maybe we need to still get you to PT to work on like now the funny gait that you have, or, maybe the headaches or whatever might still be a little more chronic as like the collateral damage that happened in the body. But we want to be identifying like what's driving the body to respond in those ways. And that's really when we practice like root cause. And there's, again, most of the time, a kind of a perfect storm of a couple different types of root causes. But this is where we can think about like infection in the body, particularly in the gut. Infection is kind of like an intense word, but we can think of like opportunistic bacteria. We can think of like fungal, which is sometimes from like low immune system. Mold toxicity is a fungal burden in the body most often. We can think of parasites as a root cause, toxicity and kind of exposure from our environment. I mean, 21st century world here, we're living in a soup of a whole lot of stuff we've never lived in.
Toxic. I swear when we leave the house, like it's toxic. I've actually had with my MCAS recently, this is a really funny, weird thing that like I haven't really told anyone because it sounds like I'm crazy, but I go to the grocery store all the time. Like it's not an issue, but recently every time I go in, I break out in a rash. So I can't go into the grocery store. I can do like a pickup or something, but I can't actually go into the store lately. I don't know if they all changed something. I don't know if the doctor's like, it could be the lights, new cleaner. He goes, I can't really narrow it down for you. And I'm like, I don't know either.
Yeah. I mean, MCAS is interesting because especially with MCAS, this is where we kind of get into this like neuroimmune like fusion, because it's like our mast cells are the meeting between our nervous system and our immune system. So it's literally like those are the cells that are most dominant in our mucosal membrane. So we think of our gut as like a giant mucosal membrane, or like our nasal sinuses and any like orifice in the body, I guess we could say. And it's like that's our surveillance system. Like your house security system is kind of like, are we safe, or is there a threat? And so in that experience, yeah, like did something change? Is it like some of the cleaners that they're like using, or is there even temperature sometimes, like very hot or very cold can kind of trigger, because the body's like, like change in temperature. And I always am cold when I go into the grocery store. So, is there a combination of a couple different things? But that's where we start to see like stress as a major root cause of like our nervous system, and is like our security system of our house starting to like, is it, how annoying would it be if your, house security system was going off every time like a squirrel walked through the yard, or like your neighbor came to knock on the door to like, offer you a housewarming gift or something like that. And it's like, wow, that would be like really annoying, and or very disruptive rather to our health and to our experience of life. And like that's sometimes when we get that experience in like our MCAS and our cells, basically it's like the body is kind of like, I love you so much that I'm going to be extra protective of you, even to the point of making your experience more challenging because I'm overprotecting you in a sense.
Yeah, I've been really reactive because of like they're trying to calm everything down for me. So it's happening less and less, but that's probably the weirdest one I've had. Like I have no idea why, and it makes no sense to me. I've tried everything to the point where like my mom's like, I'll go to the store with you and like don't touch anything. She's like, just see if that works. It did not. It did not work at all. I still came home, had to shower. I was breaking out in like some sort of
Oh,
rash. Like I have no idea what it is. So, but he's like, there's all kinds of airborne things with like, the fruits and vegetables, and that, you can't pinpoint it in a store like that. Whereas like if you go into like someplace like Target or someplace like that has, or like an electronics store, there isn't a lot of stuff to eliminate.
mhm.
Which is really funny because it's like, so I'm like sitting there going, but I can go into the clothing boutique that's down the corner and there's no problem there. Like, I don't understand.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. I even wonder too of like, almost take a page out of our friend Meg Gerber's book of like, is there, the like priming of the nervous system that you could like, even just like a trial of like, okay, if I kind of do like some breath work, because this is where like when we support like kind of down regulating of our like
Mm-hmm.
mast cells, it's this meeting of like limbic system retraining, vagal system retraining. And those are kind of talking about like the nervous system and like how does the brain communicate with the gut, and rather the gut, even more dominant, communicate with the brain, or the body communicate with the brain. And and then like kind of bringing in like down regulators from like supplements or foods or things like that. But almost is it like some, breath work or some like we can even think of like what down regulates the vagal nerve is like humming and singing, gargling. That might be a weird thing to do in the car. But like things that are really like helping to prime the nervous system like momentarily before you're going into these situations, to say like, hey, we're safe, and like let's do some of these exercises so that we're like embodied in our body. And then like wondering if that, if that would shift anything. And sometimes it wouldn't, sometimes it will.
That's interesting.
I sometimes randomly get anxiety attacks in the grocery store. It just never happens until like this year. So yesterday I was in there and I reached for a can of tomatoes and I felt the anxiety coming, and I was like, Julie, you're just grabbing at tomatoes. Like, it's okay. Like, you're gonna be all right. So I took like a deep breath and I was all right. But it was like, it's just so weird how sometimes these symptoms can just be like triggered for no reason and at any time as well. Abby, I would love to hear about like what intake looks like to you and like where do you start, because there's so many factors floating around, and what does that look like?
Yeah, in work with clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is where like in our practice, we start with a pretty comprehensive like intake questionnaire, a lot on symptoms, because symptoms mean something to me, in terms of how is the body communicating to us, and kind of puts like bigger systems in play. So if we're getting a lot of like kind of, we can even think of like, all right, how do we like listen to the immune system? And that might be more of like inflammatory like symptoms, or even things like runny nose or canker sores, or like cracks at the corners of the mouth, or like fungal growth on a toe or something. And you're like, oh, what's going on with the immune system? And why isn't it protecting against some of those, suggested symptoms that can be challenges to the immune system? And so we start to kind of think about, okay, now we're going to want to get to like ask some more questions and curiosity in like those areas of health. But when we take those kind of symptoms, we also really look at timeline medicine. So, all right, like when did those symptoms start to happen for you? And then what was happening 6 months to a year before that? Did you move into a new house? Did you change a new job? Did you, have a baby? Was it, was there anything either, insignificant or significant that maybe happened along that timeline? Sometimes that can identify like where we can see some of the shifts in health. And sometimes we can kind of get a little bit more to like the perfect storm that may have led to almost like the straw that broke the camel's back. And that became the more formal diagnosis, or that became the more significant experience of symptoms in someone's body. And then we kind of identify like, okay, based on these symptoms and this timeline and this experience, where are the big question marks? that we want to understand some like deeper insight from a testing perspective. And this is where the functional testing I find to be really impactful in terms of like, how do we create the yellow brick road in a sense that's going to tell us more about the nutrition, the lifestyle, and the targeted supplements that are going to help us to support the body to get back into alignment, to basically create more safety in the body so the body can like, let out like a sigh of relief and start to more kind of optimally function. And that's, I find that we get a lot of data from the body through stool. So comprehensive stool test tells us the microbiome and kind of immune function and digestive function in the gut. An organic acids test, which is a urine test, and tells us more about the 30,000 foot view of the body and our detoxification systems, our mitochondria health, and mitochondria are our engines of our cells. We may have learned that in like high school chemistry. But they are fundamental to the production of our hormones, to our immune system, to the healing of tissues, and are very much in and of themselves a root cause. I mean, even what we see in COVID, a lot of long-term COVID or long-haul syndrome is really just kind of damage or dysfunction to mitochondria, and we can heal it and we can support it and we can, help those people. And fatigue is a big symptom of that. Certainly comprehensive blood testing, where we can do a little more deeper understanding there. Comprehensive hormone testing, like Dutch testing, which not only tells us, hey, how many hormones do you have, but also how are they moving through your detoxification systems, and where does cortisol and your adrenals kind of play into this? And then we kind of take all of that information and start to like prioritize, where do we need to start? Because if we're, starting at like, okay, let's go after the we found in the gut that there's like some infections, like let's go after them, but this person's like not sleeping well and they have a huge amount of stress and they're under eating calories. That's a major driver to that was one of my personal major drivers.
I can't right now, like I'm having a hard time eating. So I know what I eat in a day isn't enough, but it's also like if I eat more, I'm gonna be sick. So like I'm like trying to balance trying to get eating more food in. Some days I'm good, some days I'm not.
And the awareness is like where we, you are aware of like, hey, this is a piece that I'm working on, and like the goal is going to look like this, but here I'm at today. And I feel like that's because a lot of us are like unintentionally under eating, or, I came from the, like I was chronically constipated. So like didn't feel good to put food in my body. And I felt better in a fasted state. And I was like biohacking my way to, extended fasts and all of these things. Yeah. And then yet I was like, why do I still have this like 10 pounds like sitting on my body? And why am I chronically fatigued? And why am I chronically constipated? And finally, like one day I was like, I am going to feed my body, like, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I don't have an appetite, even if like all of these things, because I have to rewire the way that my hormones in terms of my satiety and hunger hormones are like communicating, and therefore, will re-regulate my cortisol hormone, which is the adrenals and your stress hormone and really the master of all of your hormones. So that we can, really start to create safety. Because if we're chronically under eating, even just like a minimal amount, I mean, that's essentially communicating to the body that like there's a famine. And the body's like, okay, batten down the hatches. Like,
I'm actually taking it as a good sign that I'm doing better, because I do get hungry sometimes now.
Great.
So, I mean, before I wasn't getting hungry at all, because like I really didn't want to eat. I was only eating because I take my MS meds twice a day and I need to take it with food. And I was only eating because I had to, not because I wanted to, because I was nauseous and sick all day.
Yeah.
So I'm taking it as a good sign that I actually get hungry now from time to time. So I'm like, okay, like I came home from an event last night and I was like, I'm hungry. I need to eat. Why do people have events during dinner time? Like, why?
Did they have food?
They did, but it's not the stuff I can eat. Gotcha. Like, I can't eat that. So for me, I have to eat a little bit before I go and then eat when I come home, which I don't like eating late, but still, like, there's no real way around that.
Yeah. I feel like hunger has been such a feared like signal from the body for at least I to speak from like the woman experience, that it's like this badge of honor to like not be hungry. And obviously like health implications aside, but almost like societally we're like, like, yes, like I'm not hungry, I crushed hunger, like let me drink more coffee to like stop being hungry, or all of these ideas that like hunger is a bad signal, when in reality you're like, your metabolism is like turning on, your body is like, we're communicating, we're utilizing energy in effective ways. Like it is such a beautiful thing to experience like regular hunger. So I think, celebrating, and you're really seeing it as like, it's an indication that like you are moving in the right direction. But I feel like people might hear that and be like, that's such a weird symptom or like experience for her to celebrate.
To be hungry, because I was hungry when I got home at like 10 o'clock last night. And like, yes, I know eating at 10 o'clock, not the best idea. But I have this cereal from this brand called Eat Love Bird. Have you tried them?
Oh, it's so good. Yeah.
So I have just the unsweetened thing. I had some of that last night, so it's not so bad. I did that with like, some blueberries, and I was like done. So it wasn't like I ate like something heavy. I just ate a bowl of cereal just so I didn't go to bed like hungry, because I know a lot of people like they'll go to bed hungry because they like, it's late, I shouldn't eat. But it's better to like eat a little something, stay up for at least an hour, hour and a half after. So I went to bed a little later than I usually do. And then be okay. Like at least that's what I'm finding, because I'm having to kind of go with what my body says right now. Or like the days that it's nice out and I feel good enough to walk like 2 miles or 2.5 miles, and then I'm hungry all day.
I have just the opposite. I actually, I had major surgery in April. I had a hysterectomy, and ever since then, I don't get hungry like at all. And the only thing is, I like something with my receptors just like turned off. So I have to eat just for like to know that I need something in my body. But if I don't eat, I get like nauseous, like to the point that I'm like starving. And so there's like no gauge. It's either like 0, 60. So I would love to feel hungry again, Ashley. So I'll take some of your hunger pains back.
Yeah, but it was hunger or nausea. So you getting nauseous like that, I know Abby can probably say it, is because your body is saying you didn't feed me. Now I'm to the point of hangry, and you're getting that other symptoms that people do when they don't eat.
Exactly. So it's just been a process of making sure that like the symptom might not, or the signal might not be there, but making sure that I'm having snacks, which is like it's a new thing. And as a mom, it's like I'm always like feeding my kids snacks. I'm like snack. So I'm trying to take my own advice and snack myself up during the day. So Abby, what are your go-tos? Tell us more about like your nutrition and like what do you like to eat?
Yeah, what do you like do to keep your body fueled during the day, between clients and things, and between like interviews and podcasts and all the fun things you do in a day?
Yeah. I really try to like make meals like the center of my like eating opportunities. And really like within an hour or two of waking, breakfast. I feel very, very intensely about having women in particular eat breakfast with 1-2 hours of waking, because of how intricate our adrenals and our cortisol are with the experience of everything from our metabolism to our hormonal health to our energy, because in absence of food, what raises blood sugar? It's cortisol. So that's to your point of like, hey, I got home from an event, it was late last night, but it's more important for me to feed my body than to go to bed on an empty stomach. Because what you're going to happen throughout the night, if we go to bed on that empty stomach and we're actually hungry going to sleep, is we're more than likely to hit a blood sugar low. Then we get a cortisol surge, and all of a sudden we're like awake at like 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and you're like, man, I had a crappy night's sleep. Like, what's going on here? And that's because like our stress hormone and our blood sugar, we're kind of doing a like helping to support us, but sometimes that cortisol is a little clunkier and sends our blood sugar like higher. And same with the symptoms of nausea, when even throughout the day, if we're going too long between meals, we're going to similarly hit that like low, and then that refractory, typically high in blood sugar, because our body's it's going to mobilize it from like the stored places that we have, because we need it one way or another. And it's better for us to get it from like these nutrient dense foods. So breakfast is like one of the like absolute foundations. I'm a big fan of eating like a bigger breakfast than you think that you need to. So that you are like, that's like the first opportunity to like speak to your metabolism and to your blood sugar throughout the day. And like, I feel like my social media, the girl that helps me with the social media was like, yeah, you just have like a big ass breakfast every day. Like I'll like post it sometimes. And she's like, I'm always like impressed that she's like, wow, that's like a full ass meal. I'm like, it is a full ass meal and it should be. So I'm like, full ass breakfast. Here we come. I don't know if I can say that on here, but
well, as long as we don't repeat it too much, our network.
Yeah, I'll stop that. But
So what do you eat though? Like what types of foods do you have? Is it like, tell us more about like what you actually eat?
Yeah, totally. So breakfast, I really want it to be protein centric. So that we're like tying down our blood sugar and our metabolism and our hunger and satiety. So we're getting like, oh, like that really was satisfying. We're going to have better communication with our like hormones in terms of hunger and satiety throughout the day. So 30 grams of protein, just to throw a number out for people to gauge. I'll tell you what I had this morning. I made a frittata earlier in the week. So I had a nice big like piece of that. I actually had like made it in the cast iron and then literally just cut it into 4. And I've been eating like 1/4 of the frittata. And
many eggs? How many eggs did you put in it? 12?
So I actually think I put 8 in that one because I didn't have like that was all I had. So I'm probably eating like 3 eggs in there maybe, which would be what it kind of would guide to someone to say, hey, they're like, I had 1 egg in the morning. I'm like, nope, up, more than 2, all the way to 3. Like that's what we want. I had some turkey sausages along with that, and then I had raspberries because I'm trying to find. I love like fruit, like for a starchy plant carb in the morning. But in between, I've been like trying like apples, and I'm like, oh, they're too crunchy and cold for my breakfast. And I was like, I'm waiting for sumo oranges to come back because that's like my winter staple of like my fruit breakfast. And so I bought raspberries, and then like we're so far out of season, and I feel. So I was like, oh, feel like
yeah, the blueberries I tried to eat last night weren't the greatest, but there's only a few fruits I can eat, so I get it.
Totally.
You just keep trying.
Yeah,
you're like, it's just not there.
I'm gonna say something controversial here, but I don't like most fruits, but I do like raspberries, and that's one that I'm like, if I can find one I like to eat, I will eat that. I'll eat the whole container in one. But
totally. I like joke with all of my friends that have young kids, and I'm like, your fruit budget must be crazy because I'll eat an entire thing of raspberries. They're like, our fruit budget's insane. Like
the key is marry someone that works in a grocery store because that's what I did, and then you get the discount. But anyway, back to Ash.
All right, I'm going to stop us right there. We have to go to commercial, but when we get back, I want to hear all about your podcast and some of the things you do in a day to support your health overall. All right, we'll be back.
I'm Gary.
And I'm Gina.
And we're the hosts on Fire and Light Talk. So join us every Thursday, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Positive vibrations right here on E360 TV.
We are back with the wonderful Abby Hueber. We are learning so much, and I love hearing all the sciencey stuff because I love that you say that you love chemistry. I barely passed chemistry in high school. I'm great at all other science. Chemistry and I were just not acquainted very well.
What is your favorite element, Abby? Do you have? I know the periodic table of elements. That's a big chemistry thing, right? Do you have a favorite element?
I think so. The category of halogens, where like iodine lives, and then like fluoride and bromide, and because they're like, that's what, from environmental chemicals, it's like iodine, incredibly important for our thyroid health. But then we have all of this exposure to like fluoride because we put it in our water, and we continue to do so boggles my mind that we're still doing that. We have bromide that we put in our flour. We have like all of these other chemicals that compete with our utilization of iodine in our thyroid. And so that's where, a little bit of like the protection from those kind of exposures can be incredibly helpful. So I feel like that like whole category is just like fascinating to me in that periodic table.
Do you have a favorite element, Ashley?
God, no.
Mine is hydrogen.
No, science is not.
Hydrogen.
I like hydrogen because that's what you use to fill balloons, and oxygen because we need it to breathe. So those are my 2 favorite.
Okay. I'm with you there. I like the science behind nutrition, but that's about it. And I guess the only chemistry I can do is the chemistry with cooking. And that's the only one I ever teach kids when I'm teaching my cooking classes is like you can teach people don't realize that there's chemistry involved in cooking. So I can see how it relates to nutrition. But that's about as far as you'll get from me. What I want to know from you is we're talking about what you eat and how you support yourself, but I know there's other habits you do to keep yourself well. And what are some of the main things people could do to keep themselves healthy, not just by eating?
Yeah. I love this question. I think one of the first is light exposure in the morning. This is where when we wake in the morning, within the first hour, we really want to be getting natural light exposed to our eyes, no sunglasses, for ideally like 10 to 15 minutes. Our eyes are an extension of our brain, and that's what regulates our circadian rhythm. And our circadian rhythm is really like the orientation of our body and like where are we in this 24-hour kind of day cycle. And that's what helps to communicate to our cortisol, and on the evening side, our melatonin, to really set the rhythms of the body. And that has implications in our metabolism, in our immune health, in our certainly experience of energy, communication to our hormones. Like the list goes on as to like how powerful our regulation around circadian rhythm is. And we live in, again, 21st century world. We've got, darkness or light where we should have darkness, and we've got darkness where we should have light. So having light exposure within the first hour of waking is so important. So that could mean like going outside for a walk would be beautiful. Standing near a big window in your home, standing out like on a patio or a deck if you have one. If it's dark, like in Boston right now, we haven't hit daylight savings yet. So it is like dark when I wake up at 6. So I have a little light box that I turn on for that first 15 minutes in the morning, just to get some of that stimulation. It is so helpful for me to wake up. Like when I wake up, my eyes, I'm just like, I don't want to open my eyes. Like I'm a little tired. Like I could easily, I'm like such a snoozer and such a sleeper. My family were very good sleepers. I could fall asleep on like the floor if I wanted to most of the time. But with that light box, like turning it on, I feel like my eyes are like, okay, like I'm up, and like just kind of hanging in bed for like the 5 or the like 10, 15 minutes is like a treat, where I like sit with my light box and then kind of like start the day from there. So simple, and you can kind of utilize it, in the summer, I'm more apt to get outside and go for a walk, but it's 30 degrees now when I wake up, and I'm like, I'm going to push my walk off for a little bit.
So what's your advice for rainy days? I know you have your light box, but for those of us that don't have that luxury, like what do you say for rainy days or cloudy days? Because those days can be challenging for the body to regulate because of the lack of light coming in. So what do you suggest to do for those days?
Yeah. Usually, like even on some of the overcast days, we're still getting a pretty significant like natural light. So it doesn't have to be a sunny day. There's actually a cool app called like Lux. There's a couple different versions of it. They all are very similar, like LUX, which you can just you need like a smartphone for it, but you can hold it up to any light source and it'll tell you like what the IUs are, which are the or the lux, which is like the emission of light from whatever light source that is. So you can actually measure, like, is it a day from the outside that I'm going to get? And we really want over like 1,000 lux, or 10,000 lux would be like a really good, like, okay, I'm getting like that stimulating light experience. The light boxes are like $30 on Amazon too. So like a pretty, affordable option that I really do think it sounds so simple. You're like, what? Like, I'm going to look at light in the morning. Like, come on here. I feel like some of my clients, when we start to talk about it, they're like, okay, like, I guess I could do that. And then they start practicing. They're like, holy moly. Like, I feel so much more like energized in the morning. Like we start to see slowly but surely through this consistency and these like simple practices that have nothing to do with food, and they're like, this is cool. I'm like, isn't it the coolest?
I guess you can say they saw the light, right? Like
yeah, I mean, like right now I have all the blinds open over here, and I have blinds open in the kitchen where I'll be cooking in a little bit, and I have everything open. Now, I like that your biggest focus is SIBO and the microbiome and helping your clients be well. what is like the biggest tip you can give to people if they don't know where to go, or whether it's a dietitian or a functional medicine specialist? I mean, I went the traditional route for the longest time, and unfortunately, GI couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And you were talking about long COVID, and ironically, it was a friend's business. His wife had posted that, you know, her long COVID symptoms, and she had seen this functional medicine doctor in the area, and I got an appointment to see him through that.
Yeah. I think this is where, certainly I think there's a lot of people, especially from the digestive perspective, that are like, I talk to them and they're kind of like, yeah, like, I don't know if I have IBS or not. Like, I'm waiting to see a GI specialist to basically get a diagnosis of IBS. And I'm like, you don't need it. A diagnosis of IBS means nothing because it's a collection of symptoms. And unfortunately, like what a lot of my, kind of prospective clients find is like, even when they do get that diagnosis, they're like, nothing happened on the other side of it. Like there was no solution then that all of a sudden they were like, oh my God, like, yes, this GI specialist is going to like help me. It's kind of like, no, like I got offered like Miralax or like an antidepressant or like a Band-Aid for the dynamics. Now, I do think a lot of times clients will come to me and they're like, hey, I had a colonoscopy and an endoscopy and like they didn't find anything. Or there was like some inflammation, but like that's it. And they're like frustrated by that. And I'm like, hey, I know that's frustrating because you didn't get answers, but we just ruled out a whole host of like physical, really big, like, polyps and cancers and things like that you're like, oh, hey, now we're in the functional realm. Like now this is like the realm of like, come to a functional provider. I am always going to be the biggest proponent of functional dietitians. I think we are the communicators to the nutrition and the lifestyle and the supplements and testing, because we really want to teach people like, how do you actually live in your life? Like, how do you plug into your life and heal your body at the same time? Because it is totally possible. Like, I don't practice elimination diets. I at one point in my career did. I don't find them to be effective unless they are like medically necessary. And then, we do practice them, but only to the point of like, for that unique individual, what are some of the triggers that might be causing more symptoms for them? Because food is, triggering what's happening in the environment. And we have to go to the root cause. Like in, MCAS, it's kind of like, okay, those cells are destabilized. We need to, work with our nervous system and kind of targets to like calming the MCAS, and diet is a part of that. But if we only use diet as a tool and took out all the foods, like we'd certainly be making like you eating enough calories, like really challenging. And so we want to kind of utilize all of the tools that we have. And that's where, I'll stand on a soapbox for functional dietitians all day, every day.
So on your podcast, will we be able to find fun tips like this all the time?
We are. So my podcast is Your Body Has Your Back. My co-host is also a functional dietitian. She's a women's health expert. Jillian Greaves is her name. I couldn't say enough like amazing things about her. And we have really written it to be a curriculum of before you come to see like a functional provider or a functional dietitian, like these are the things that we want people to know and to start practicing like well before you need to come into our office. And maybe in practicing those, you don't actually need to come into our office and to meet with us, because you find like, wow, these made a really big difference. So starting from the beginning of the season and kind of moving of our like season 1, every episode is written to like build on the next and really help to like speak to like, how do you actually practice the foundations, just like we would speak to a one-on-one client.
That's amazing, because I now added you to my playlist of things, because I listen to podcasts while I walk because there's so many of them. So I keep different ones on rotation. So I've added yours because I find what you say very interesting, because I do love the science behind health and nutrition, and I've taken such a deep dive into it. But I am not a dietitian, which I tell my clients, but I know a lot of stuff because I've had to learn for myself. I always tell them to consult a medical professional like yourself or their doctor or whoever. So I want to thank you for coming on, Abby, and sharing all your knowledge with us and our viewers. You are welcome back to our show anytime you want to come on and share anything or any new things that you have coming out. I am always happy to have another mask girl on with me.
Represent. Thank you guys so much. This is so fun. Your dynamic is like so lovely and welcoming, and I appreciate it so much. And I think you guys are doing amazing work.
Oh, thank you. We love our new friends. Thank you so much, Abby, for coming on.
Abby, you have a good day, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Now I'm going to head to the kitchen to make a very delicious sweet potato puree. That'll be perfect for Thanksgiving.
That sounds so exciting. I can't wait.
Well, I know that I will love it, but I'm not sure you're going to feel that way when there's no butter or fat or anything in it other than like avocado oil and coconut milk. But everyone stick around. It'll be super delicious. So let's see, where am I? You know, you people always laugh at me because I can always press the wrong buttons, and I do. But here we go. I'll be in the kitchen right after this. And I am back and in the kitchen and have way too much light. I should probably close the blinds on the other side.
That's okay. It means your body's balancing.
What?
It means your body's balancing because you're getting all the light in. So
yeah, well, I opened the blinds to the back window, and I think I opened them way too much. All right. So we are making sweet potato puree for Thanksgiving, which is my favorite thing in the world. I eat sweet potatoes all the time. They're one of the few things that I can eat that are absolutely delicious.
How do you like your sweet potatoes, Ash, when you have them? What's your favorite way to eat them?
Oh, I just eat them pretty plain, but right now we're going to puree them. And I have some that I cooked. I have these nice, beautiful organic sweet potatoes that are huge.
How long did you cook them for, and at what temperature?
Well, I do them in the oven. Sometimes I'll roast them before I do this. Sometimes I just roast them whole. I stick them in for about 40 minutes or until soft and fork tender. I don't particularly like boiling them because I think you get a lot of the flavor and you don't get the caramelization from it. We want the caramelization. All right. So we have one in here, and it's going in my lovely food processor. I tried doing this with a hand mixer, but it didn't really work out really as well. So the food processor it is. So that means I'm going to be making some noise, so I apologize in advance, everyone.
So how do you feel about heating up a potato in the microwave, or are you anti that?
Well, here's the deal. I guess if you need the convenience, but the thing is that when you do that, it takes a lot of the moisture out of the potato, and it makes it a little drier. But if you need the convenience, I mean, I'm not stopping anybody, especially with Thanksgiving prep.
I'm also thinking
time where you can.
Yeah, to puree a sweet potato too, I would think a lot of new moms would be making baby food too. So the easier way probably
You have to steam when it comes to baby food. You have to steam it, not microwave it.
Okay. I clearly never pureed my own baby food, so
because you want the nutrition for the baby, and if you put it in the microwave, you start losing some of the nutrition. So if you want to do your own baby food, you end up steaming it, just because it's healthier.
Got it.
And you want your babies to get in as many nutrients as you are. So I have about two medium sweet potatoes here, and I'm just scooping everything out as gently as possible, without making a mess. But let's face it, we all make a mess in the kitchen. Even me, I'm not immune to it. I make messes.
But do you clean your messes?
Yes, but if I'm cooking for someone else, I always make the deal that they clean, not me.
I like that. That's kind of the deal in my marriage. I cook, he cleans.
Well, not my marriage, but just like I'm not married, but my family. That's the deal. If you cook, they clean.
Yeah.
All right. So I have some avocado oil to add a healthy fat. So I have about a tablespoon and a half. I have my lovely Celtic gray sea salt, the mineral salt. I put in 2 healthy pinches.
It's Celtic salt? That's interesting.
Yeah, Celtic sea salt. It's the mineral salt. It's good for your body. It has all the things that you need.
Where can you buy it? I've never heard of it.
You can get it in health food stores. You can get it on Thrive Market, which is where this came from, and my coconut milk. So I have organic coconut milk that's light. It has no fillers. There's no gums. There's no anything in it. So here's the thing about coconut milk. See this? It's solid here. You got to stir it because it separates. Coconut milk separates. If you wanted it the solid part would be what you use if you were going to put it in the fridge and make coconut cream. All right, so I stirred it. You're going to use about half a can because you want it to be nice and smooth. Then comes the flavorings. Now, you should get fresh ginger, but the fresh ginger at the store looked icky this week. And you want, when you're looking for fresh ginger, you want the skin to be smooth and a nice tan color. If it looks wrinkled or kind of green or like have kind of weird brown spots, the ginger's no good. So I'm using ground ginger here, and I'm going to put in about 1.5 teaspoons.
How did you find this recipe, Ash? It's so
I
interesting.
made it.
You made it yourself? Okay.
Yeah, this is my recipe. I didn't like find it anywhere. It came out of my brain.
Nice. Nice.
I was looking for stuff I could eat, and I started playing around with things. And I have a little bit of cardamom. Now, cardamom has a little bit of citrusy taste to it. It's kind of
What is it?
a little citrusy. Cardamom?
I don't know that one.
Try it. It's great for baking too. It's good in cookies. So I have about a half.
Is it part of the nutmeg family, or like what is it part of?
No, not nutmeg. It's cardamom is like a little green pod kind of thing. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong if it's a green pod or not. All right. Bear with me, everybody. Julie, make lots of noise while I make noise. All right. Okay. So as you can see, it starts to blend really, really well in here. And I have to, because there's so much stuff in here, I have to give it a little stir. And
It looks like a sweet potato milkshake.
Much you want it or how smooth you want it, you can add more. I'm going to add a little more milk to get it a little bit smoother.
And then how do you
sometimes they don't.
Is this a side dish or how
So
do you
what I do, yeah. So what I do typically, all right. So what I do typically is I make sure I taste it before I serve it. I put it in a bowl, all nice and fancy. I drizzle a little more of the avocado oil. I sprinkle it with a little bit of the fresh ginger or the ground ginger. And if you want, if you are tolerant of nuts, you could put on a little bit of either chopped almonds, or if you can't do nuts, do some chopped tiger nuts, and it's so tasty.
How is it?
Mm-hmm. Really good. And it has a slight sweetness, so if you're missing the sweetness from the coconut milk, from the sweet potato caramelizing in the oven, and the coconut milk, if you're missing the sweetness for like when you like your sweet potato casserole and you can't have it anymore, this is a great alternative.
That's awesome. Can't wait to try it. Yeah, it looks really good.
Yes,
It's
and
really colorful.
for you. Yes, and it looks so beautiful and pureed and delicious. Look.
That looks delicious and healthy. I can't wait to try it. Save some for me.
It is healthy. I will. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our guest, Abby Hueber. We're going to continue with the Thanksgiving recipes this month. And if you want to go to my business, Bella Foodie, we are doing a gratitude challenge this month. It's a special Facebook group that you guys will have to join. We are donating to a local food pantry. we are also doing all kinds of things to make our lives a little bit better. So Julie, I hope you join, and I hope everyone else does at home. So thank you for joining us this week. Julie, do you want to say goodbye to our lovely viewers?
Thank you, everyone. It was great. Can't wait to try the pumpkin puree, and it was another great, fun one. And thanks so much for Abby for joining us today. Can't wait to see you all on our Facebook, on our Instagram page, rather.
Bye.